Thanks so much to all my patrons. Join now to help support the channel and help pick the books that I review. Link in the description. And I am done. Okay, so I just got done reading The Devils. This is the first book in the Devils series by Joe Abercrombie, and I want to give you my unedited thoughts on finishing this book, which was literally just right now. So, yeah, this thing is so good. This is... Now that I'm done with it, I can definitively say this is the best first book in a Joe Abercrombie series that I've read, without a doubt. I mean, this is an incredible, incredible story. This is perhaps going to go down as the best new book of 2025 for me. Could go down as like the best book I read in 2025. It's that good, and we're that early on in the year. But I'm blown away by how good this thing was. This is up there with like the best that Abercrombie could possibly be able to deliver in a story. And honestly, it feels like it takes the best things that Abercrombie can do, ramps them up a little bit, and then solves some of the problems that Abercrombie has as a writer, notably the problems he has early on in his series. And it just turned into one of the most enjoyable stories that I've read in a really long time. And truly one of, like, not just one of the most enjoyable, but one of, like, the best when you take every part of what makes a story great. I mean, this is a wonderful, wonderful story that I would not be shocked if we look back on this series a decade from now when this is done. Hopefully, that's how long it takes. Joe, let's get going. And consider it as better than The First Law. And this is coming from somebody that considers Abercrombie's work in The First Law to be one of the top 3 best fantasy series of all time. And that's just how wonderful this gets out of the gate. So, with that groundwork said, let's step back a little bit and talk a little bit about the plot without spoiling anything here, because in one of the rare cases, you probably don't know any of this plot. You know, a lot of the times I'm like the last one to read a book. I read a lot of books well after they've come out, and even if they come out, sometimes I read them a lot slower than everybody else, because I kind of stick to my consistent reading schedule of like 100 pages a day or so. And when a new book comes out, people are like flying through it, reading for like all day, and I'll never read it faster than everybody else. But I got this book so early. This book comes out, I believe, in May. And for whatever reason, an arc of this book was given to me a couple months ago. I just finally got around to reading it, but it had been floating around well before then. So I don't know the marketing, path that I think it's Tor. Did Tor send me this? Why does it not say? I'm pretty sure Tor sent me this. I want to say it was Tor. Yeah, it's Tor. What their marketing strategy is, giving the book, like, widely distributing it to reviewers like 6+ months ahead of time, but, we'll see if it works. I know it's been done before. I know that, like, Fonda Lee's story she came out with recently about, like, the flying bird thing came out, like, that much earlier than normal, but, yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise to me, but, yeah, but happy for me. But, so let's talk about the plot a little bit, since you don't know about this. So, and the plot I will be talking about here is I will probably spoil some of the events of like the first like 2 chapters or so, like super early. In fact, my guess is that when the back cover of this book finally gets published, because it doesn't exist on this one, it's just reviewers talking about it. This isn't the real cover that's going to... I mean, I think it's the real picture, but not the real like actual back cover. That I'm probably going to tell you less than that what that will say. But the story here is this book is set in like an alternate history Europe where the Pope is a little girl. Most of the clergy are women, or most, if not all, are women. The world, at least the religious world that we're following here, is Europe, that is roughly split into 2 halves based on some schism that is not well defined on what exactly it meant, because a lot of things mirror history, but they're different. All the locations are the same, but different areas have a lot of power. Like in this book, one of the empires, the Empire of the East is the seat is in Troy. So that's how alternate the history is here. But that's the world that we're in. And the Pope has tasked this little girl, not little girl, but like, still a girl, but like in her teens, I think is about her age, has declared that she is the long lost princess of this empire, this other empire of the East. and that the Empress has just died in the East, and there's going to be a succession war, and this princess is actually the rightful heir. So they're going to secretly transport this girl to the East and try to instill her, merge the church together once again during this chaotic, bid for power, and somehow pull off this scheme. And in order to get this girl to Troy, they're going to travel with the devils. So what are the devils? The devils are this group of, I believe, 5 individuals that are some sort of demonic sort of creature that that has been not empowered, but told that they must do something by the Pope with magical powers in transporting this girl across the continent. Now, these 5 different devils, I won't tell you all of them, but there's because I don't want to ruin anything fun for you. And in fact, I will not talk about one of them because that gets revealed a little later on. But right away in the first chapter or so, you meet a vampire who is beyond ancient, so old that he can barely walk. You meet a pirate that can never die. Not a pirate. You meet a military general that can never die. But keeps all the war wounds that he accumulates over time and the pain that goes along with them. So it just lives this horrible life of pain. I wrote some of these down here. That you've got this elf. Elves in this story are the great evil of the world, and everybody is waiting for the elves to come back and try to take over Europe. It's a major plot line. But there's this elf who's one of the devils, and whenever she holds her breath, she can go invisible. But she only for as long as she can hold her breath, and that's her only power that she has. And then who else is there? And then there is a magician who is a necromancer, and he has no powers beyond the ability to raise the dead. So if he's not around any bodies, he is completely useless. These characters. And I can't say anything more than that. That's the plot line that you'll just have to go along with, because a lot goes haywire from there, as all Abercrombie stories do. And trust me that the plot is incredible. And the thing that I love about the plot the most, and one of the things that I think that you will find immediately upon reading this, is somebody who maybe has read something like The First Law, where you read the Blade itself. And I think a lot of people that read The Blade itself, and what they say is the writing is great. The characters are beyond great. The plot, not so great. The plot is what are we doing here? Not a ton of action. There is some, but it's a bit subdued. But you're mostly, the greatness of the story is just the incredible writer that is Abercrombie, because he really is something unique. He's something very special in the genre. He has such a unique voice, hilarious writing, that is just, it's not funny in the Pratchett sense, but everything, just the way he writes his sentence structure is, gets a laugh out of you, I think. And the vivid way he describes things are so unique and so dirty and dark, and it has that dark humor to it as well. So it's just, he's such an incredible writer. But this story fixes the problem of the plot, because this plot is truly great. Now I get that maybe I didn't hook you when I just said that. Hopefully I did, because it is incredibly interesting. But this is a gripping plot from start to finish. I mean, you go from pretty much the first few chapters into this, the pace is quick. It doesn't let off the gas. I mean, it does enough to where you get the character development that's needed. It doesn't do the thing that some stories do, where they go literally all gas, no brakes. You never get even a conversation between characters because they're going so much. It's not that. But the plot carries. And you get these moments of down, but you know that very quickly they're going to rise up again, and there's going to be a problem we need to overcome. But nothing feels samey. Everything feels like you never know what's going to happen, even though you get the gist of some of the things that are going to happen, if that makes sense. So you have no idea what's going to happen. And it's great, because even though you think you know what's going to happen, there's a lot happening behind the scenes that you're not quite aware of. But the plot feels like, I feel like I just read a wonderful standalone book that doesn't need to be a standalone. I feel like the last book I read like this was 𝐾𝐬𝐴𝐺 of the Wild, by Nicholas Eames. In fact, that book is most similar to this book out of any book that I've ever read, even more than any other Joe Abercrombie book, because it had that. It was fun. It was an action story. It felt like you read a whole story in one, even though there are sequels that are promised. It felt like you were just having a dang good time the entire time of the story. And I felt like that here. Now, the Abercrombie story that I'd say this is most similar to is most certainly Before They Were Hanged. Not Before They Were Hanged. I'm sorry. The, oh God, how am I forgetting the titles? The one with Best Served Cold. The heist story that is the first standalone story in the First Law. So the First Law was like 3 stories in the First Law trilogy, and then there were 3 standalones, and then there was 3 in the Age of Madness. The ones I'm talking about is the first standalone. And it's a story about a girl who wants to get revenge. It's not necessarily a heist, but there's some heists in it. And so she goes and tries to pick off these handful of people that wronged her over the course of the story. And so it feels very similar but very different from that story. But where you have that fun adventure story with a huge emphasis on these characters. You're jumping between the perspective of the characters, even though they're all traveling as a group. You don't get a lot of split perspectives. You have a core goal that we're marching towards. So yeah, a lot of similarities there. But I would even say that, and I'll have to go back and judge things, but I would say I liked the character cast here significantly more than I like the character cast in Best Served Cold. And I love the cast in Best Served Cold. I mean, you might have, it's hard for me to say this because the First Law cast has people like the Bloody Nine. It has people like 𝐿𝐼𝐸. There are some all-time great characters. But I don't know that after the first book that we read in the First Law, people would have said those were all-time great characters. I think it took a little time. I think it took a trilogy for people to actually say that. So we might be building towards that here because there are some, in my opinion, all-time great characters that are being described here. So we'll see. So truly everything about this story is wonderful. Get your hands on this the moment you can. It's got much more fantasy elements than anything the First Law had, which I think was another problem that First Law could have had more of. I mean, First Law had almost no magical elements to it. This has a fair amount of them, and it helps the story. It doesn't hurt it. So, God, it's great. This is a great story. I so want you all, I want May to show up so you can all read this and I can join the conversations talking about this with everybody because it's been a struggle reading this on my own and not being able to talk about the greatness that is Abercrombie with everybody else in the wider community here. So, yeah, you got to check this thing out. And, honestly, I don't know what's going on here with the audiobook, but if Stephen Pacey ends up doing the audiobook for this, hopefully you get him because he would just knock this out of the park. I could hear Pacey in my head when I was reading this, in just the way that he synonymously sounds when paired with Abercrombie's writing, and it would be magnificent. So another one that I think would be incredible to go audiobook if you were able to get Pacey, but again, I don't know if that's a thing. So and somebody in the comments let me know if that's a thing or not, because hopefully it is. And he didn't say, I need to make that distinctly my First Law thing. No, you should make that distinctly like an Abercrombie thing, because he's great. You guys are great together. So yeah, I don't know much more to say about this thing other than you have to go get it. It's just like a must. Put this on a have-to-do-it list. And honestly, if nobody's read Abercrombie yet, this is probably the first Abercrombie book you should read. Which is saying something. So that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching this gushing review. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons: Amy, Alex P, Anna G, Doust, Darren, JD, Jerry, Jonathan, Nev's Book Channel, 𝗒𝘗𝑐𝐿𝑒, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Sydney Baker, Slay, Tahir, Anna, Alfredo, Blair, Bevan, Eric Cannon, Joe UK, Kat Mick, Michael Sugarman, Ricky Iman, and Sky. Thanks for sticking to the end of this video, and if you want to watch some more content from my channel, click over here and I've got some good videos for you. Thanks so much.